The band Mr. Big just released their 10th studio album, simply called 10, and followed that up with their last live album, which is called The Big Finish. Both are incredible. Our special guest in this series is their longtime bassist, creator of the band, Billy Sheehan. And you might remember in the 80s, he was on the first two projects for David Lee Roth, which did incredibly well. But we ask him about David Lee Roth in this clip, his practice technique, because he is one of the best bass players on the planet, and how it's great for a band to have a consistent, great logo, and I've always loved their logo. That and a lot more on Rock History Music. Mr. Big formed in 1988, known for their tight sound and rockin' and melodic songs. Their band's original lineup consisted of four very accomplished musicians: Billy Sheehan on bass, Paul Gilbert guitar, Eric Martin on vocals, and Pat Torpey on drums. Before forming Mr. Big, each member had already established themselves in the rock world. Billy Sheehan had gained fame as the bassist for Talas and David Lee Roth's band, playing on albums like Eat 'Em and Smile. Paul Gilbert was known for his guitar work with the metal band Racer X. Eric Martin had a successful solo career with hits like Sucker for a Pretty Face, and Pat Torpey was an experienced session musician, working with artists like Ted Nugent and the Knack. Mr. Big quickly gained a reputation for their tight live performances and musicianship. Their self-titled album Mr. Big in 1989 introduced the band to the rock world with tracks like Addicted to That Rush. However, the breakthrough came with Lean Into It from 1991, which featured the hit To Be With You. This song was #1 in 15 countries. The album also included tracks like Green-Tinted 60s Mind and Just Take My Heart. They followed that up with albums like Bump Ahead in 1993. It featured Wild World, a cover of the Cat Stevens song. Then came Hey Man in 1996, continued the success. They became very popular in Japan and other parts of Asia. After their initial run, internal tensions led to the departure of Paul Gilbert in 1997. Martin once said that Gilbert never said it, but he knew he left basically because he got sick of he and Billy Sheehan arguing. The band disbanded in 2002, but the original lineup reunited in 2009 for a world tour, and they released new music. What If in 2011 and The Stories We Could Tell in 2014. Sadly, drummer Pat Torpey passed away in 2018 due from complications of Parkinson's disease. They recently released their 10th album, simply titled 10, and a live album called The Big Finish. Billy Sheehan was born on March 19, 1953 in Buffalo, New York. He's widely regarded as one of the most technically proficient bassists on the planet. He first gained attention in the 1970s as a bassist for the progressive rock band Talas. They released several albums, including Sink Your Teeth Into That in 1982. That was their biggest. His innovative bass playing style, which of course incorporates that tapping technique and lightning fast runs, really earned him a reputation as a standout in the rock scene. Sheehan's big break came when he joined David Lee Roth's band after Roth left Van Halen. He played on his first two highly successful projects later. The band also featured Steve Vai on guitar and Greg Bichonette on drums. It was those bass lines again with Roth that solidified his place as one of the top bassists in the world. In 1988, Sheehan co-founded the supergroup Mr. Big with guitarist Paul Gilbert, drummer Pat Torpey, and vocalist Eric Martin. And they quickly rose to fame, particularly on their 1991 album Lean Into It. That was their biggest. It featured the chart topper To Be With You, which was #1 in 15 countries around the world. The group released several other albums, including Bump Ahead in 93 and Hey Man in 96. Outside of Mr. Big, Sheehan has worked with various projects. He formed the band Niacin, an instrumental fusion rock group that combined jazz, rock, and funk, and their releases, Time Crunch in 2001 and Organic 4 years later. He's also worked with a lot of different players, including his old David Lee Roth bandmates Steve Vai, Tony McAlpine, and Mike Portnoy. There was also Sons of Apollo and that debut album, Psychotic Symphony in 2017, to critical acclaim. Throughout his career, Sheehan has always been known not only as a technical player, but a guy who pushes the boundaries, which earned him multiple Best Rock Bass Player awards from Guitar Magazine. He's one of a kind. David Lee Roth to you was?
Grandmaster genius, PhD of music, showbiz, and adventure. Just a Renaissance man. Changed my life markedly. And I learned, I got a PhD myself just by working with him. It was such a great learning experience. Just an amazing, amazing man. I still have unlimited love and respect for him.
What do you say when someone asks you, what do you do for a living?
Well, the most popular thing I've done is Mr. Big, and we had a #1 hit in 14 countries. So I know people are going to know that. I remember we'd get on an airplane and I'd be carrying my bass, and the flight attendants would know we were a band. Oh, what band are you guys in? I go, Mr. Big. I never heard it. I'm the one. Oh my God! And they literally they moved us like that to first class or business class and free drinks. One time on a Malaysian Airlines flight, they let us sit in the cockpit. That was before 9/11. They let us sit in the cockpit and watch takeoff and landing with the pilot. It was because they were so excited that we were on the flight. So generally, yeah, I will default back to the thing that I've done that is most well known by Joe Average, by your average person. And amazing, almost everybody knows that song. I mean, it's been on TV and movies, and it's on the radio. I went into, I forgot to get my wife flowers for her birthday, and I was in the doghouse. So I went into our local Kroger, and it was playing as I'm trying to figure out which roses to buy. Supermarket flowers. Yeah, that's the thing. But generally, I'll just say I'm a bass player, and some people know me. It depends on what circle of people I happen to be in. But I will certainly. I love to be with you, and I love what it did for me and our band, and it changed our lives incredibly. So yeah, I would probably default to identifying myself as the guy who played on that song.
You guys consistently had the same logo for the most part for the band, which I'm a big lover of that. I'm going, that's my band. And of course I understand the other side of it. You're allowed to do whatever hell you want. But
Yeah.
Was that conscious?
I think so, yeah, because that was a kind of a trademark thing, and people saw that and they knew it, and let's stick with it. I think people identify with the Coca-Cola logo, with the Ford logo, and when you start moving it around, you can incrementally change it over the years and probably get away with it because people might not notice it. But yeah, it was. We want to keep things identified as it's us.
Brother, lover, little boy. My God, that was one of those songs that made me stop in my tracks.
Yeah, I wrote it on a napkin at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. We were the bar was like went around the corner. You could go around the bar and be stuck in a little spot there that nobody could get to. So when I would go there in the David Lee Roth days, we would go me, Dave, and Steve, and would go back there, and we had a guy to prevent Dave from getting swamped. And we'd be back there drinking and hanging and stuff like that. So it became a favorite spot of mine. And a dear friend of mine, Eileen, she was the head waitress there, and just a dear, wonderful young lady. And we would talk. I was there by myself one night. We would talk and hang out and have a few drinks at the bar before I went off and socialize. And I said, you got a napkin and a pen? I got an idea. And that was it. To all the things a guy would try to be to a young lady. The father figure, being a brother, the lover, of course, and sometimes being a little boy. And I wrote that down, and it grew from there. So I probably still have that napkin in my archives. My archives are extensive. I'm probably going to auction everything off very soon too, because I'd much rather have it in the hands of our fans and use the money for a good cause somewhere. But yeah, it started, wrote the title, and I do that a lot with titles. I just write titles down, and then later on a song is born. But and I've known some other writers that are pretty prolific and pretty successful. Not an uncommon thing.
Talked to the guys in the Rascals a few times.
Right.
Big fan. But and I remember seeing Dino Danelli's picture, and I remember going, "Why is Paul McCartney in that band?" Because he looked so much like Paul McCartney in the early days. But you guys doing good loving.
Yeah, I remember on I think of "What is the Reason for Falling in Love?" That song on the Ed Sullivan song when they stop and Dino just plays bass drum. Doom, 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 doom. He stood up and played. And, oh my God, the drummer stood up and played. Unbelievable. I was a huge Young Rascals fan because I had a friend of mine, Ray Schmaltz was his name. He was born blind and he was a B3 player. And so we played every Young Rascals song you could imagine together. And it became a thing. I just loved that band. And when we needed a song for the switcheroo, where we all switch instruments, I don't remember how or why I came up, but what a good loving by the Young Rascals. And I made sure, now we're down half a step for our normal tuning in Mr. Big. So it was, I could hit all the notes in that key that I had to hit. So it was an honor to play that song. And I love those guys so much. I think Felix Cavalier did a fantasy camp. And me and Kip Winger were his background singers for a couple of songs, Rascals songs that we did. So that was my moment of being in the shadow of greatness by being around him that one time. I know they're all performing again. I think it's just Gene Cornish and Felix.
Yeah, it's Gene and Felix. Yeah.
Oh, I love that band. And the New York scene hatched the Rascals and Vanilla Fudge, two of my favorite bands ever. And Mountain, too. I think Mountain was kind of a New York, East Coast.
How do you look at practicing yourself personally?
Well, I put in hours and hours every day. I kind of need to. Maybe I don't, but I sure think I do. So, but I remember Dennis told a hilarious story, a true story, that he was doing a clinic one time and took a break for answering questions. The audience, and somebody said, "Is it true that you never practice?" And he goes, "Yeah, I don't ever practice." And people in the audience were like, "Come on, get out of there." And so Dennis said, "Well, I'll prove it to you. How many of you guys have trouble with your playing?" And everybody raised their hand. He goes, "All right, how many of you practice?" And he went, "See? You can't fault the logic." So he sits down at that kit and just is on fire. Phenomenon of nature. There are, I think Jeff Beck was kind of like that too. I don't think he was a heavy practicer.
Really?
I think. Might be incorrect on that.
How do you look at luck?
Pretty much the same way. I'm prepared. I'm ready. I got my gear on. I got my bass. It's in tune, ready to go. I got the soft bag. I can get on an airplane in 5 minutes. So I think you make your own luck just by being prepared and just keep on going. And I remember when I was back in Buffalo struggling, I had a to-do list every day of who I would call and do this thing and get this guy and get this amp fixed and try this and learn these songs and just constantly going. And I know some of the other musicians I played with back in the day brought it back up to me in present time. So yeah, I remember you had the to-do list and you were always at it. You're always on the phone and always doing something. So, and it resulted in not much of anything, but eventually we got up to a point locally where we got some management who hooked us up with premier talent who got us opening slot on a Van Halen tour out of nowhere. And because we had been pushing and it was led to me meeting the guys in that band and Dave, and then later on when he needed somebody in his band, and he called me, and it was I opened up for Talas, opened up for UFO. Michael Schenker saw me, contacted me. I worked on his first record with him. We didn't end up recording the record, but I was there. And then later on, UFO called me to replace Pete Way for a European tour. So just kind of being there is half the battle. And being there and being at a level where you're doing well, that's another part of it as well. But I think you make your own luck. I want to get things done. I don't want to get it done right. And back then it was quite a struggle. And I wasn't getting any younger. I was in my late 20s, and I'm thinking, if I don't get to where I should be or get to a spot where this is my actual career that I'm making an actual living off of, it was struggling. I still had my old checkbook ledgers, deposit $100, rent $80, the remainder $20, electrical bill $11, and down to $9. and it was all documented in there. So I'm thinking, geez, I don't know, I'm going to have to, because my idea of being an adult and living is that now you have a place to live and the bills are paid and you got money in the bank and things are covered. I wanted to get to that. And somehow, not necessarily be rich or famous, but I wanted to get to a spot where I was comfortable to know that I had, food in the fridge and my rent was paid. So there was a desperation at that point to get somewhere and get somewhere quick, because I think once you get past 30 or so, it becomes more difficult. Not impossible. I think if you're 80, you could start a band and have a hit record. But because it does become less likely. So I pushed harder and harder. And at one point we changed members in Talas. 2 guys left and 3 other guys came in. I know the 2 guys that left, I was driving them crazy because they were satisfied. They had their a nice apartment and they plenty of free beer at the gig, and why rock the boat? Where I was like, come on, we gotta do more. Let's work on some more songs. And I know I drove them out of their minds. But I was driven and determined to get somewhere. Didn't know that I would, and wow. Somehow the stars aligned, and I managed to squeeze through.
That you knew at 30, you got to get it done by that age, and that's a lesson for all. That this is a life but music question too.
Exactly. After show in a European show we did recently out by the bus, a lot of fans were there. Some very young girls and their mom had come out to see us, and a couple of them could sing really well. And I had I put her on the spot, sing something for me. And she had a great voice. She had a really good voice. I said, okay. And she was, I think, 16. I thought, okay, at this age, and I'm glad your mom's listening, this is the time to really, if you start and really put it in high gear now, by the time you're 21, you could very well be in incredibly great shape, career-wise, to really go. So, and sometimes people have had that at a very young age. They knew what they wanted, they got it. I mean, I did too. I just wasn't as successful as most early age coming up playing in the bar scene and cover bands. But it was all training, like yourself, being on the radio for so long, holding all those positions. You know how it works. So when you get up, when you're on, you're on. You're a pro at what you do because you did it for so long in so many configurations. Similarly, hopefully that would apply to me as well. I played every kind of band, every kind of copy tune, and every condition, from no dressing room to catering, where you choose your menu the night before, and have a masseuse traveling with the band, so, and everything in between. But a lot more spent in the early days with no dressing room or no catering or no nothing. So, but that was good because you learn how to deal with anything. So when the time comes to go into battle, you are prepared.
Remember, if you want to support the channel, right now is a good time because a lot of my colleagues on YouTube are quitting because the income is just all over the place. It's very inconsistent. And even with us, with 136,000 subscribers, we're almost at 137. We are fighting for the hits. So if you want to make a PayPal donation, there's a link at the very top of the description. You can join our Patreon and you will get early access to our videos. Also, we have a swag store where you can pick up all kinds of stuff, a cap, a jacket, a t-shirt with our logos on them. And remember, subscribe to our channel, share our videos, comment on them, and like them. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Music. Take care of yourself.